Okay, welcome everybody. This tutorial is going to be all about multi-view drawings. So I'm going to get my template going here. And there it is, my custom template. So I know I've got all my layers where I need them to be. Basically, it's all about construction lines. Once you start drawing your object, it's all about construction lines. And the only difference is, if you're drawing two views, it shouldn't be that much of an issue, but construction lines definitely do help. If you're drawing three or more views, then construction lines are a definite need. So if you want to try following along in the textbook, I'm going to be using the image on page 246 in the textbook. That's chapter 8. Looking at number 19, the mechanical pillow block is what I'm going to be working with. So essentially, let's just start drawing the object line here. We're going to draw that front view, right, which is the most descriptive view. So let's see, that's going to be, turn my ortho on, 5 inches. Zoom out a little bit, kind of misplaced that, that's okay. 5.375 and hit enter. Then we're going to go up 0.875, enter. I'm going to hit escape, hit the space bar, continue from the top, 1.250, enter. And now I can just snap right down. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select everything. I'm going to hold control and then use my cursor arrows here to place it in that first quadrant, hitting escape to get out of it. Okay, so based on some of the information that we have here, what we need to do is use construction lines effectively to get some of the information from one view to another view. So in this particular view, this is really all I can do with this information. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use construction lines. And you have different options for construction lines. You can literally go ahead and use the line tool, for instance, and just drag, make sure your ortho is on, and just drag some lines out, hitting escape and space bar multiple times. And basically you're getting all of the edges. After that, another option is to use the actual construction lines or ray lines, right? So if you wanted to, you could use a ray or you could use X line. Okay, so going top, I'll use ray, hit enter, and this time I will click on that side and move up and do the same thing. Oop, escape spacebar and up, escape spacebar and up. So basically you want to go in all directions, going from every single edge. Now there are not a lot of edges here. I've got this one edge, I've got this endpoint here, a third endpoint, and this bottom edge. Right, so not too much going on from the basics here. Right, so again, these on the right hand side were lines that I drew. These on top are rays. So if I zoom out, those rays are going to continue forever and ever and ever, which is totally fine because we are going to then turn off the layer, the construction layer, so that we don't see them. All right, but we definitely need to keep them around. So next is being able to jump back into the object layer. And again, we're going to start with a line. And, I've got, where do I start, right? Where do I start? I can start at the end point. This might be too far away. I can start at the midpoint of this construction line. Same thing with the ray. Where exactly do I start? That's really up to you. You kind of have to gauge whether or not you have enough room for dimensions. And the truth is that after you're done drawing the additional views, you can always move them over or move them closer or farther away so that you do have room for dimensions. So it's not like a you have to put them in a certain distance. Okay, so we're going to do this. I know I go up to here, right? And going across is 4.25, 4.250. Coming down, this is the beautiful thing about construction lines is you know exactly where they have to go, without question, 9 times out of 10, right? Okay, so we've got this drawn, and I'm going to draw this line here at the intersection. And right off the bat, if we take a look at that drawing, I've got two holes, and I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to draw just a very simple line and use my offset. My offset from the side is 0.75 or 3/4. And I'm going to drop that in, get rid of this. And now I have a place where I can modify, and I have that 3/4 distance where I have my location of the hole. So what I can do now is I can drop this down by just using the grip, and I'm going to hit tab to get to the overall, and the distance from the bottom is 0.375. All right, that's just using modifying grips. So then the question becomes, let's put a circle in here. So I've got my circle tool, and my diameter is 1/4 inch. So I'm going to hit D, enter, 0.250. Excellent. Hit escape and offset tool again, and this time our distance is 2.750. And I'm going to offset that line that we created and basically do the same thing. Now I can copy, or I can create a new circle. So this time let's just do copy. Select the circle, right click, specify the center point as my base, copy it over, and hit escape when you're done. After that, we are going to delete these lines. And now we add another construction line. All right, so you're going to be adding construction lines as you build. And I want to go from the center point all the way across here. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have those construction lines going from the top quadrant and also the bottom quadrant of your circle, so that you can add the actual hole depth and draw that circle as necessary. So now I'm going to switch over to the hidden line. Why? Because the holes are actually hidden. Right? So I'm going to start at my intersection point, and I'm going to travel down. Now, how long do I go down? I have to look on that right side view, and it has a depth of 3/4 of an inch, right? 0.750. So I'm going to type 0.750, hit enter. I'm going to drop down, hit my line, and come across. Once I've got my line drawn, hit escape. And then last would be to enter a center line in the middle here. So I'm going to do that, switch over to my center layer, click on my line tool, and just to make sure that I'm on the line, it's giving me this midpoint snap, and that's okay. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to drag this out somewheres here. Left click and hit escape. Whoop, that one disappeared on me. Let's try that again. One. All right, it looks like it might be snapping back to something else. So I'm going to hit F3, and I'm going to left click here and then escape. And I'm going to select that center line and use the lengthen option to shorten it up to right about there, hitting escape. All right, so now if I turn off my construction layer, I've got a really nice clean hidden line. It looks like that last snap that I did before, that kind of left over, so I want to get rid of that point. I don't need that point. And I'm going to go back and turn on my construction layers so I can continue with the other features. All right, so if we zoom back out here, this is about as much information as we can get. We might be able to get, well, we do have the 2.75 distance in this right view for the ellipse. Well, actually it's a hole, right? But technically speaking, if we're looking at that right view, the actual shape is an ellipse because this is an inclined surface, right? So inclined surfaces do not show true size or true shape. Therefore, it's foreshortened, which is why a circular hole looks like an ellipse. So we can only get the horizontal information for that circle, and we need to get the all the information for that circle. Okay, so in that drawing we have an auxiliary view, and the auxiliary view is something that you guys should be learning in print reading for this week. So the auxiliary view is, can be placed. It has to be aligned, right? It has to be aligned with this incline, this line here. And as far as where it goes, doesn't really matter per se. All right, but it'll help us with the alignment. Okay. The other thing we can do is we can try drawing the top view and see if that will give us any additional information. All right, so let's do that. So let's draw the top view. So I'm gonna make sure I get back onto my object layer and line tool. And let's see. So snaps are back on, but and I can barely see it, but right here I've got my endpoint O snap. So even if I'm up here, oh, there's my intersection. So now that I've got an intersection, and again, if you're not getting what you want, you can always go down and force an intersection snap or a different type of snap if you need. All right, so I'm going to be here. I've got my my snap, and I'm going to draw this out here. And we know that this distance is what, 4 1/4, so 4.250. And come back and draw down. Hitting escape, spacebar to activate the line tool again. And we basically do the same thing that we did in the previous one, right? But this time we can do it in a different method. We know that we've got a little bit more room. I know that I'm 3/4 of an inch in from this back wall, and that I'm 3/4 of an inch from this side wall here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the circle tool, and I'm going to shift right click and use my snap from. Right, just another way to do it. You can also draw a scaffolding line. All right, basically just a line that is 3/4 in, 3/4 up. That'll give you your point as well. But using the snap from, I need a base point. So I'm going to left click, and now my offset. So I have to make sure that it is relative, and I'm going to say 0.750, tab over, 0.750, and hit enter, and now I can draw my hole right away. And again, the holes are a diameter, so D, enter, 0.250. There we go. And I'm going to draw a line, right? This is my scaffolding line. I'm going to draw a line, 2.750, and then hit enter, and then I will draw another circle at this endpoint. This time I'll use center radius, which is fine. So it's diameter cut in half, so 0.125. Hitting escape to get out of it and getting rid of any additional lines. All right, so now that we've got this, I'm going to come back over to my construction lines, and we'll start from the quadrant. Try to get a more useful image here. So quadrant, hit escape and spacebar. Quadrant, that was this next quadrant. And finally get the center, make sure that we have the center all lined up. And as you're doing this, you might have to stagger those lines so that you're not seeing the same O-snaps pop up. Your line might jump to the next line. So stagger them a little bit just to make sure that you don't see O-snaps. All right, now that we have the proper location for our hole, I'm going to take the hidden line type and line tool and start at this particular intersection. We'll do that. And we saw last time that it goes down 3/4 of an inch, so 0.750. And I'm going to shoot it over to perpendicular snap and bring it up. That's all I need there. Get my center line. And this isn't too bad. I can start there, and I'm going to turn off F3 just so that I can give it a nice endpoint there. And I'm going to hit F3 to turn my O-snaps back on, right? F3 to turn off my O-snaps so that I can place this without any, automatic snapping. And then F3 to turn it back on so that I have snapping for future features, right? All right, so it looks like we're getting there. Next is going to be trying to get that hole, right? So to get the hole, I actually need to create the auxiliary view. All right, so with the auxiliary view, what I'm actually going to do is I will use OSnap, and actually let me do this. I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to turn my ortho off for a moment, and I just want to get a sense of where, right? So if it's somewhere out here in the middle, so I'm looking at about 14 inches, 15 inches where I can draw that. So 14, 15, let me get it clear out of the way. I'll draw 15 inches. All right, so turn my ortho back on, and I'm going to offset 15 inches. And because I drew this as a line, there we go. So now I've got a good starting place, right? So then from here, I'm going to be drawing perpendicular lines, and I can do an X line if you'd like, or you can do a ray. Specifying my point. Actually, let me turn my ortho off. Whoops. Do that one more time. Hit escape, clear out. Let's just do a regular line. How about that? Escape, put it on the correct layer. There we go. And specify my first point. And turn my ortho off. And this should be, perpendicular because we offset it so. And I'm going to do the same thing from this bottom corner. All right, that one said 15 inches. This one did not say 15 inches, so I'm going to delete it just in case. And I'm going to start from this top. There we go. So that said 15 inches. So now I know that these lines are going to cross no problem. And we know, again, we know what the distance is, so I'm just going to use the offset and the full depth of this part, right? We've done it before, 4.250. And I'm going to select this line. There we go. And I can basically jump to my object line and just connect the two so that I have my box. There's one, hit escape and spacebar. Oops, there we go. Okay, so now using the offset tool, one more time, I'm going to offset the center mark for the hole, which is 2.875. Hitting enter, and I'll use the construction line for that because that's going to also give me some additional information. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lengthen this center line, and right now I'm lengthening, right, so it's like around 2.1 inches, and I'm going to lengthen it right to the center, so which is 2 1/8, like 2.125. So 2.125. Hit enter, and that should take me right to the center point for that circle. So go to my circle tool, and this, the smaller diameter, right, so D enter for diameter is 2.750, and I'm going to hit spacebar and draw another circle. That diameter, so D enter, is 3.750, and I've got my lines. So now we work backwards with construction lines. Okay, so if and actually we can do it a couple ways, because the quadrant, right? Actually, if we try doing quadrant, which on an angle would be somewhere over here, AutoCAD doesn't know that. So it still sees the quadrant, the north quadrant here, and the side quadrant on the side. So that's not going to work. So the best thing to do is to continue using your offsets so that we can offset the lines to the circle. So we're going to offset this center line to either side to help us get that information. And let's see, so we got to figure out 2 3/4, right? Divided by 2 is going to be 1.375, and you can do that on your smartphone or whatever. So 1.375, and hit enter, and click 1 and 2. Click back on that center, and then click 1 down. And then we're going to do the same thing with the 3.75. And if you divide that by 2, we get 1.875. So hit the offset tool again, and 1.875. And now, again, using the center to the top. Whoops. That was the wrong one. I'm going to do that one. I'm going to just delete that one. Hit escape. There we go. I set the other one before I deleted it. This way I didn't have to go back into the offset tool. So now that I've got these particular lines, I'm going to extend them or lengthen them through my part here. So click, and we're going to lengthen. Try that again. Lengthen. There we go. Escape. Click, hover, choose lengthen. And, oops. Click, hover, choose lengthen. Escape. Click, hover, lengthen. Drag it out. Click, hover, lengthen. All right, so now it looks like we've got some good line work, and we'll be able to use these on our right view and also on our top view. So first things first is we need to see where actually our front view has sort of a lip. Okay, so maybe we should do that first. So I'm going to use the offset tool, and that lip is 0.375, and drag that part out, or not drag it out, but lift that part out. And I know that the hole, right, it's basically going by the outer hole, which is the 3.75. So I know exactly where that crosses. So I'm going to use the trim tool, right? TR, enter, then spacebar, And I'm going to start at the top here. 1 and 2. And I'm going to start at the bottom. 1, 2. Hitting escape. All right, so now I've got switching to my object layer. Now I have points. Make sure that's perpendicular. That looks good. All right, the rest of this is just converting the line types, right? So this line we won't do anything. This second line in, I'm going to change from a construction line to a hidden line, and I'm going to do the same thing with that one. Now, because I selected it, all I got to do is just pick the right one, and that'll change. My center construction line will change to a center line type, and then I can go back and trim some of this out as needed. Right, so I'm going to choose that line, hover, lengthen, and turn the O snaps off, which is F3, and I'm going to bring it down to about here or so. And same thing on this side, hover, lengthen, and bring it just past the part, since center lines have to go beyond just a little bit. And the rest of this is going to be trim work. So TR, enter, spacebar. And I'm going to start at the end and walk it up. And walk that one up. And here and here. So then these two hidden lines we can just delete and get rid of. So this is starting to look pretty good. What I'll do is I will turn my construction off, and this is starting to look a little bit more and more like the drawing, and that's exactly what we want. We've got our center line nicely placed. We've got our interior hole designated with the hidden lines. We've got the other holes. Everything is starting to look good. Bring my construction lines back on. And now basically we have to create yet more construction lines, of course. And this time we need to make sure that we have all the areas for the hole. So I'm going to use the line tool for this and turn my F3 back on. So again, any intersection that is not, called out, we need to make sure that we get that information across. So make sure my ortho is on and draw my line. I want to get the corner. So it does look confusing. I'm going to draw this line up here, make sure that I get the back end. Okay. And my center, that's going to be center for the top. So maybe I'll stop it here just so that we don't get too confused. All right, so now I know where the center is, right? There is another method called the miter line. So I'll be able to do the miter line. I guess I could do it here. So that what that does is that gets rid of the auxiliary view. Basically, it's a 45 angle line. Right? You would draw technically a 45-degree angle line. So it's 135 degrees. Right? And then you would basically bounce from your right view up off that miter line and into the top view and vice versa. But because we have this, because we have the auxiliary view, we don't necessarily have to do that. But I do want to finish putting some of the other information in. And that's going to be here. Make sure my ortho. And pull that up. I want to work around that edge. Again, making sure that I'm not snapping to too many random points. Okay, so what we've tried to do is I've tried to get the most of the major points on the outside and also down on this lip here. And that should give us enough information at least to get started so you can see what's going to happen here. And again, it is a little bit confusing, but just take one line at a time or two lines at a time. So next is the ellipse, right? Because we have to draw an ellipse since it's not a perfect circle. I'm going to offset 2.125. 2.125. Did that not take? Let me try it one more time. Offset 2.125, hit enter, and I'm going to offset this left just so that I have a nice center point. And what I'll do is I'll quickly convert that into a construction line. So I've got an intersection. So going to the ellipse tool, all right, center ellipse. Left click 1. Going to the side, I know that the outer hole, right, let's do the outer hole first, is a diameter 3750. Okay, but we need half of that, right? So 3.750 divided by 2 is 1.875. And you're going to hit enter. And for the other side, we know that it's going to hit this top line here. Okay, so this top line here is exactly where it meets up, and that's where we have to left click, right? So that coincides with this line here, and that line, you can see this is the extent. So that's where the top is, all right? And we're going to do the same thing. Actually, let me get rid of this line because that's going to confuse people for right now. And what I want to do is I want to get the extent of the hole, the smaller hole. So construction line, line tool. This is where the edge of that line goes. So switch back to my object layer and ellipse tool. The center, same center, and going out to the left, right? If we do, now we have to do the 2.75, so 2.75 divided by 2 is 1.375, so 1.375. And then I'm going to bring it up to that line. So that is our ellipse, right? At least on the face. And there's a couple of things that we'll have to do to, make it look more three-dimensional. The biggest thing is we can just copy, right? So I'm going to take the copy tool and I'm going to hit the outer edge and right click, and my base point is going to be the bottom. So I click on the bottom, I drop it down, and hit escape. So basically this comes down to a trim, right? Or you can kind of break. We can do it either way. So let's try the break. So we're going to use the break command and hit escape. And I'm going to select my object. I'm going to try to select it right at the intersection point. So I'm going to click 1 and 2. Let's see, did that give me the 2 lines that I needed? It did not. That's all right. So I'm going to do it this way. Actually, let's try. I want to try that again. Break command, enter, and select object. I'm going to select it here and specify a second point, which will be there. There we go. That looks pretty good. And if I'm not exactly on, then what I can do is I can click and I can probably extend or lengthen. Let's do it this way. I'm going to extend. I don't know if we've done extend, but I'm going to extend. And I'm going to left click on the outer loop there. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to click on that little portion and extend it right up to that line so that I've got nice clean geometry. And I'm going to do the same thing so we can get the hidden line version, right? So copy tool, select the outer loop, right click, base point is going to be the bottom. And I'm going to drop another one down. Okay, so this one I'm actually going to change layers so it's a little bit easier for me to see. So we can do it on the construction layer, that's fine. And I want to use the break tool again. So break. And as I select my object, I want to make sure that it's highlighted. And I'm selecting here. And this time I want to make sure that I keep the top portion. So I may have to go from the other side. Because if I do that, I think it's going to keep the bottom but not the top. So let me hit escape. And I'll do break one more time. Enter. This time I'm going to start on the right side, making sure that the yellow line is highlighted. Click. And I'm going to move my mouse downwards. Looks like it still wants to delete that point. If I click there, yeah, it's keeping that part there. So I'm going to undo. So I guess at this point, troubleshooting this really quick, I'm just going to trim. Right? I think that's going to be the better option to do. So trim, spacebar. I want to pick the yellow line on the bottom and the yellow line on the bottom here, and that trims it. I select it, change the layers to the hidden layer, and after I zoom out, I know this looks like a giant mess, but if you turn the construction layer off, you start getting a pretty clean drawing. Right, so there's a lot going on, a lot of information. If you go to the layout tool, right, so I'm going to double click in there, zoom out a little bit. This looks like there's enough room for all of my information, and it looks like we're at about a 1:4 ratio. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to make sure that I get to see all of the hidden lines at the right scale. Right? If they're showing up at a slightly different scale, then I need to do something about that. So again, this is just kind of a pre-check to do that, to make sure I've got the scales right. I'm going to hit LTS, which is line type scale. And let's change 0.5. So at a 0.5 line type scale, these show up a little bit better. I'm going to hit spacebar just to do it again and say 0.25, and let's see if we can get anything closer. Nope. So I'm hit spacebar, maybe 0.75. All right, 0.75 I like a little bit better. It's a little bit more clear and obvious. So that's where I'm going to leave it there. So in my model space, my hidden lines and center lines definitely look a lot closer, but this is not what we're printing out. What we're printing out is on paper space. So this is where I need to make sure that everything shows up properly. All right, so once we've got this going on, you can take care of this in a couple of different ways. Let's turn the construction layer back on. You can go through the same process that you did here and apply it to the top. Or since we've already got it drawn, what we can do is, as long as I have a center line, we can copy, rotate, and drop it to the other side. I don't really recommend doing that. However, this is pretty much the same. All right, so let's see if we can make that happen and if things line up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into our drawn information here, and I'm going to start in the top left corner on the inside, and I'm going to draw or drag out a box, and that should cover everything. Because I'm doing the window, it's only giving me all the elements that are fully enclosed in this blue box. All those yellow lines are not going to copy over. So I click, all of that is selected, and I'll do it this way. I'm going to Control C to copy that information, and I'm going to Control V to just kind of bring it out and left click and set it into space. Once I do that, I'm going to select it one more time, and I'm going to rotate based off of the center point. Make sure you get the right center point, should be the top one. And I'm going to make sure that this is in the right direction, so I need to drag my mouse up. Again, it's being a little jumpy because I have my ortho on. So I'm just going to left click up above. That reorients this to the proper direction. And now I'm going to use the move tool. So, but before I do that, I need to make sure that this is going to be in the center. And best way to do that is to offset. And 2.125 is the correct number. So let's offset this bottom up like so. Change that line to a construction line, hitting escape, and then I'm going to move, right? Move this rotated object. Select right click or hit enter, and then I want to make sure I get the proper center point, and I want to move it right into place. That's my intersection. Left click. And now we double check just to make sure that that was the correct version. I think I did it backwards. Yeah, this should be rotated the other way. So let's see if we can do that. I'm going to carefully left click in between here and do a window. And I'm going to use the rotate tool. Specify my base point as the center. And I'm going to move my mouse. That should be the way, so I'm going left. That's the way it's working out for me. Left click. And now that I've set that, now this is making more sense, because from this top view I should be able to see both of these edges, and that part is set. Hitting escape to get out of it, and all that's left is a couple of extra hidden lines. Right, so change over to my hidden line tool, and we're going from the quadrants of the ellipse. So I'm going to bring this out to, let's bring this into the center of the hole, and escape spacebar and do the same thing. Oops, wrong one. There we go. And do the same thing down below. Oops, keep doing the wrong one. That's technically where they're stopping. Again, we gotta see reality where where that hole stops. So because that, I think the drawing in the book is slightly inaccurate. So I'm going to take that spot where it stops and drag out a line. I see what they did. All right, so they're just trying to keep it easy. But technically there would be actually more ellipses than what we see. But we don't have to make it that complicated. So turn off my construction layer. Because that was my current layer, it's just asking me if that's what I really want. And this is how you create a multi-view drawing. This auxiliary view, all set to go. Top view, front view, and right view. If you did not have the auxiliary view, just to show you really quick, I'll use a different layer for this. I'll use phantom lines just in case. And let me temporarily place this on another layer and hide it. So let's put it on the... Well, let's do this. Let's use right click, and we're going to isolate, and we're going to hide objects. So temporarily hide it. Using the phantom line method or the miter method, I'm going to draw a line, make sure my ortho is off, and I want to make sure that this is at a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to hit tab, go over, change to 45 degrees. And then this would be in the place of using construction lines. All right, so turn my ortho on, and you basically take those same edges, center points, and I'm just kind of doing a quick method here. All right, then I would trim out all of this, and do the same thing from the bottom. Or actually, this should make sure you get the correct snaps. Now this one is not lining up per se, okay? And the reason for that is that because we arbitrarily drew our views, right? So I didn't equally space this right view from the top view. So that's why this is not lining up. But if you were to use the miter line method, then everything lines up. And you could draw your third view in this manner. So that would be the miter line method, okay, if you wanted to use that. And again, we're pretending that this view didn't exist yet. So what I would do is I would use miter lines, and then I would drop my extensions, and also use the extensions from my front view to create the view. So I was off by maybe an inch or two, just kind of doing it on my own. But that's essentially what you need to do for miter lines. I'm going to delete these, and I'm going to right click, go to isolate, and end object isolation, bring back that view. And that's using all the miter lines. Again, don't forget to turn off your construction lines because we don't want to see them in paper space. Construction lines are strictly for constructing, and they should not be showing up in your final drawing. So don't forget, turn those off, and then you've created your proper multi-view drawing. So I'm just going to turn them back on just so everyone sees. This is Multiview Drawings.